Unsolicited genius.
Greetings all, and welcome to another edition of Conversation with Carlton. Today I am with our esteemed guest, Elizabeth Dalia Racine, the District Attorney for Douglas County. What's up,
Hey,
Dalia?
Carlton. How
What's
you
going on?
doing, Carlton?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's so good to see your face.
Likewise. So at the time of this recording, we are a few days before Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and the family.
Same to you. Same to you and yours.
So full disclosure to the audience, you and I have known each other for a very long time. I've been to your mama house, your grandma house, was at your wedding, was at your graduation of becoming an attorney. We both are Gator. We have shared life experiences. So with that in mind, I know all about you, but share with our audience what your life's craft is.
Man, that's such a heavy question to start with, Carlton, but I'm here for it. Rise to the challenge. You forgot one important critical fact, that you also were responsible for introducing me to my husband.
You know, the ebb and flow of y'all dynamics. Sometimes I want credit, sometimes I don't. But true enough, we did that.
That's fair. That is fair. No, it's been an interesting journey. We are marking kind of, I guess, our halfway spot, which is crazy to say, but, I guess we're solidly in midlife for many purposes. And so when we talk about why are we here, what is our work, I really feel that the culmination of my life experiences have brought me to do the professional work that I'm doing. And it's, albeit a political position, but I think it is one that has to come from a place of passion to do the work that you're supposed to. And it may sound cliche, but honestly, I feel like this is my life's purpose in the work that I do. I feel like it's a culmination of everything I've been through, everything I've strived for. All those different things have brought me to this point of serving as district attorney. And just because I know everybody's got different terms from wherever they're at, a district attorney is responsible here in the state of Georgia, which is where I serve in Douglas County. We are responsible for handling all the felonies that occur within our jurisdiction. And a felony is basically anything punishable by a year all the way up to life or death in prison. Here in Georgia, we do still have the death penalty. And so it's a wide gamut of stuff. We got everything from drug possession and burglaries to sex crimes, crimes against children, and murder. Like, you name it, we got it coming through our office. And so, yeah, I think when we talk about our life's mission, it's about service. It's about leaving this place better than how I found it, not for me, but for the generations to come. It's about planting seeds to trees that I may never sit under the shade of. It's about a lot of things that I think are bigger than me, and just allowing myself to be used for those purposes.
Appreciate you sharing that, because if I'm being honest, I would never tell you this privately, but I tried my best to be honest on the show. And so your journey has definitely been an inspiration for mine, because as you shared, you're in your purpose. And for me, being a coach now, being a podcaster now, being able to create content and just try to uplift the folks is me being in my purpose. And watching you do your thing from University of Florida to law school graduation to district attorney, and the journey that was, and still is, really has definitely been an inspiration for me. So
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Like I said,
I'm glad it's recorded.
Yeah, right. I won't lie to my audience. I tell you anything, but I won't lie to the audience. All right. So that being said, on the show, we cover a lot of headline news, and for you, as you stated, you deal with felonies. So you see it. You see the outcomes of misbehavior. You see the dynamics that cause a person to become an offender, nature, nurture, all that stuff. So, Georgia, Stacey Abrams, Herschel Walker, there's so much that we could get into. But what I really would like for you to share with our audience and us have some conversation around it is, what's wrong with us? So in the criminal system, dealing with all the felonies, there's a vitriol, there's a venom that flows through our society. Historians will say it's always been there, but there's something different, for you and I to be mid-range, right? Mid, I don't even like saying it, but I say mid-range of this thing.
Yes.
We've had a previous experience that's evolved to what we have now. So all that being said, what is society's plight from your vantage point?
Yeah, great question. And I think it actually far supersedes just the criminal justice system. Because I think once you enter the criminal justice system, either through victimization or through perpetration, like you are well on your way to what I think is the underlying issue: simple, untreated trauma. I think that pretty much the vast majority of what we see in our criminal justice system, what we see in the ills of our society, what we see in the issues that we confront is untreated trauma. I mean, one of my biggest focuses of trying to launch data within my office, because I feel like you can't fix what you can't measure. And so we're constantly trying to find ways to innovate and figure out what is happening in our community, and to unsilo the system in the sense that I have a role to serve, right? And I need to stay in my lane. But the information I have, the work that I do can connect to so many other systems naturally, organically, because we feed constantly into each other. We're constantly weaving in and out of each other's systems. For example, you know very well, but for those that don't, my husband is involved in education. And our system, the criminal justice system, is so deeply and intimately connected with the education system that often people don't see that correlation. And so going back to my underlying issue of untreated trauma, right? So if we have kids that are in school, they start having trauma at home, and that maybe leads to truancy. They're not showing up to school anymore. That activates the juvenile system, which we're also over within our office. It's not just felonies, it's also the juvenile court system that my office is responsible for. Which a big issue for me is interrupting the school to prison pipeline. So now we got these kids and these families that may be broken because of various reasons, that the kids are not getting to school, that the systems and the support aren't there. And then that capitulates. And I could tell you, unfortunately, what I get to see is this really disturbing report card of kids that come into our system. They'll start at truancy, then they'll have like status offenses, which is things that only a kid could be charged with. So maybe it's running away, maybe it's these other things because of what's going on at home. So now they're in the system, maybe they're incarcerated, maybe they're giving support, whatever it may be, but the dynamics at home still exist. And so that support may not be there. And it is this predictable matriculation that we see of these kids involved in the juvenile system coming into the adult system and constantly being interwoven within that education system. And so one thing was, look, I can't be in a classroom, y'all can't be in a courtroom, but what if we talked? What if we had discussions on what's the best way for us to kind of hedge when we see these warnings, when we see these red flags, when we see these issues? We unfortunately suffer with a lot of issues of violence in our school early on in the school year. We had a kid who was murdered, who was a classmate of my kids. I've had kids that were arrested for murder who were in our school system. And it's not because these are bad kids. That's the other issue. We got to fight labels, right? And so when we're talking about what people have been through, it shapes those journeys. It shapes their projection. It shapes their likelihood of success. And so the simple answer is untreated trauma, really, honestly.
No, and that, I think, as simple as it is, it's also very powerful.
Yeah.
As you know, I am a professional life coach. I work with primarily professionals, but every client, me, you, we all have traumas that occurred early in our lives. And so to know that the answer, the reason being so simple, what makes treatment, resolution, intervention so difficult?
Well, number one answer is resources. I'll speak to Georgia, and I think that this is a chronic issue nationally. We've, in essence, defunded mental health treatment. We've deprioritized mental health treatment. There's a shift coming. I'll say that I think that people are really catching on to how important mental health is, into therapy and to having those wraparound services of healing families, how important that is to not only getting people and keeping people out of my system and the criminal justice system, but keeping kids in school, creating, these healthy family, healthy dynamics that needs to be in place. And so when people are able to create a wall that says, well, this doesn't really impact me, so what's it matter as far as the funding, those decision makers, I think that what we are starting to do is tear down that wall brick by brick, because it's beyond what's happening in these households. It is now impacting our community's economic stability. If people are able to show up to work, if they're employable, if there are all these things that can happen, because now they are healed, they're able to be productive workforce, they're able to be a consistent, sustainable workforce. And so making those connections, having those discussions, allowing people to understand the economic viability of getting people who are on probation back into our economic system, because they've paid their obligation to society. So therefore we need to stop shunning people who are coming out of the criminal justice system, because they need to be a piece of that. And that's traumatic within itself, right? Like, obviously there are people who belong and need to go to jail and prison. I have unfortunately seen some of the most horrific crimes that have occurred, but the vast majority of individuals who go into our custody or into our custodial systems, they're coming back out. And what do we do as a society to absorb them back in, to have the protection, the healing, the support for our community? And broadly, most people aren't going in for a long time. They're going in for a little while, but their families also been disconnected during that time. The resources have been depleted during that time. Who knows what they've gone through in the custodial system when they're incarcerated. So it's all these dynamics that wrap up and wrap into what that looks like. And I don't know if you ever heard of ACE scores. Is that something that you're familiar with, the terminology?
I am not. So educate us.
Yeah, so ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences. And it's something that I have been working really hard to try to figure out what we have going on in our community in Douglas County, Georgia. But it started several decades ago when Kaiser, the healthcare company, partnered with a California university, and it was healthcare driven, where they would talk to patients that were coming in and they would ask them this kind of basic but very revealing questionnaire about things they had been through growing up. So things like, did you have witness domestic violence? Did you suffer from abuse as a child? Did you have a parent who was in custody? Did you ever suffer from homelessness? So kind of really traumatic experiences somebody would experience as a child. And what they saw was the correlation between the higher the ACE score, so the more of those things you said yes to, the higher those ACE scores, that the more likelihood that you would have chronic health issues. Because those childhood traumas not only are indicative of things like, okay, well, maybe you can have socioeconomic indicators that are saying, you have, below the poverty line, or issues that may impact you in that way, but it's the emotional and the traumatic toll that also took place on those individuals that manifest physically, like it's a physiological response to the trauma that you have incurred. And they've expanded this because it's so informative to like looking at the criminal justice system and seeing that the higher your ACE scores, not only the higher your likelihood of perpetration, of being charged with a crime, but victimization, being the victim of a crime if you haven't already. And, this was really fascinating to me because, we talk about our own personal experiences, and I'm very transparent with my personal experiences, because in what has shaped my work when we're talking about our personal mission and what drives us and what gets us there. So for me, when we talk about that piece individually for my ACE scores, for lack of the better term, which kind of goes beyond my childhood, but being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, being a sister to a drug addict who eventually did succumb to his addiction and died of his addiction, and this is also beyond that childhood experience, but being a parent to and raising Black children within a system that I'm terrified of, right? These are all things that are traumatic experiences that shape the work I do. So my own childhood sexual abuse, that shapes my advocacy, making sure we show up for victims in the system, make sure that they have a voice. My experience with a brother who was a drug addict helps shape the fact that I think we have to try to cure addiction, which often has nothing to do with the drug of choice, but often has to do with the trauma that has led to the drug of choice. And so constantly finding innovative ways as a criminal justice system that we could get with individuals and connect them with the resources, and having drug courts that are driven by our judges and other work that we're doing. And also partnering with agencies, again, de-siloing our system, partnering with agencies that are doing really great work to make people employable, to give them a shot, to give them an opportunity to break this systemic cycle of poverty that often people are in. And then the whole issue of the trauma of raising Black boys and girls, that you want to make sure you have a system that is fair, a system that is equitable, a system that is cognizant of the trauma it has caused on communities of color, and to try to repair those relationships and to ensure that moving forward, you are fair and you are just in the work that you're doing. And so when I know how impactful that is for me in my own personal work, it's very easy to make that leap on how impactful ACE is and what people have gone through, like what we started with, right? How impactful people's journeys are in their trajectory of where they end up. So it's something that, you know, I take seriously, and it's something that drives me, and it's something that keeps me up at night, and it's something that, you know, really keeps me dialed into this work and constantly trying to be innovative and trying to find those solutions, because none of these are easy answers or easy fixes, but it's too important not to do it.
You know, I appreciate you sharing that, because often we talk about the childhood trauma, but it's also a recognition that traumatic experiences come and go. They happen in our youth, they happen in our teens, they happen as adults. Because to your point, I'm also raising a Black boy, and you know, the world for him scares the sugar honey iced tea out of me, whether it's school. You know, I one time I damn near had a panic attack with him just going to the mailbox, because you know, we occasionally, you know, get aggressive drivers, and I mean aggressive in terms of the flags that they have attached to their vehicles, and you just never know. You know, he could be the target for the day. Let's scare somebody. Let's put some fear into him. Been blessed thus far, but as you know, the journey's not done. So, you know, the name of the show is Unsolicited Genius, and with that, I would ask you, for those that haven't entered the criminal system, whether self or parent who doesn't have a child that, you know, hasn't entered the system, they're doing relatively well in school and in life, but as I'm sure you've seen, some things can flip, in particular related to traumas. So what advice would you give, quote unquote, regular people related to the impact of trauma, so that rather than wait for something to occur, we can get in front of it?
Yeah, being proactive, man. You know, I think the best thing that we can do, so from the parental aspect, is we just got to talk to our kids, right? We have this wealth of life experiences, and you know, I got 3 teens, and so they don't ever want to hear what we got to say. But I will also say that I feel like it sticks, right? I feel like there are moments where if you just keep talking, like they'll be able to separate the wheat from the chaff and just understand what it is that you're trying to say. And obviously, you know, I was the teen who thought I knew everything. And so, but reflecting back, I was like, dang, my mom was right when she said that. But, you know, I think we have to have those conversations. Like just the other day, I was having a conversation with my daughter about, you know, relationships and what healthy relationships look like. And I think also the biggest thing we could do is be transparent about our own histories, about our own mistakes. I think that sometimes our kids are scared to talk to us because we exude this like thing of perfectionism, like we've done it all right, we've got ourselves together, and like look at where we're at.
I was kind of perfect, right? I ain't
Okay,
messing
Carlton.
up.
All right, I won't be fully honest with your audience, but that's fine.
Please don't.
If that's what we're gonna tell
I
them.
want them to come back. Please don't.
No, and so I think it's just being like humble and being transparent with them and being like, look, sometimes this is hard, sometimes this is scary, sometimes, you know, just because I'm a parent doesn't mean I always get it right. And knowing when sometimes we gotta say sorry, sometimes we've got to understand too that it's our responsibility to break those generational curses. And just because this was how you were raised doesn't mean that you have to raise your child in that same way. So it's all those things, but of course none of that could be done unless we circle back to what we started with. We deal with our own untreated trauma, and we deal with our own stuff and our own mess. And you know, I can tell you, like, even though my kids will always say, like, it sucks that I'm a career prosecutor, so I've always done this work, and most of my career was focused on crimes against women and children. So just the amount of stuff that I have been exposed to and seen. And I started talking human trafficking with them when they were like 8. And we were having conversations about sex, and we're having conversations about all these things, and, you know, body awareness and the right to say no. And I just remember mentally watching specifically my daughter, like at the ages that my traumas happen, and becoming like this guardian to be like, it won't happen to her, it won't happen to her, you know?
Right.
And I think like as parents, we don't talk through that, we just react to it. And they're like, what is happening? So like, they're always like, you raise us in a bubble and we don't ever get to do anything, which I know that, you know, you're well aware that these children have like such a blessed childhood, but I mean, I'll take it. But at the same time, there is that piece to my trauma of like having this wrap around, like, don't let what happened to me happen to them. Right. So you gotta, and if, because I'm honest with them, they know the fact that I was abused as a child. I talked to them about it. And so they understand it. They may not like some of the things that happen as a parent, as any child does not like some of the things that happen as a parent. But I think having that humility and transparency while still maintaining your role as parent, but understanding and opening those lines to communication, because I think that helps so much more further down the line when the real stuff hits, right? Because they think like this is as hard as it's going to get for them at like 15 and 17. But when real life hits, that they know they can come to you to talk about it because you've been open and vulnerable with them. I think that really does help.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, you heard it here. Deal with your stuff and then talk to your kids about yours and theirs. And on that, we'll take a break and be right back with Conversations with Carlton. Welcome back to Conversations with Carlton. I'm with my guest, Elizabeth Dalia Racine. So on the show, we talk a lot of sports. The segment specifically is What in the Sports. As a wife, as a mom, you participate from the stands more often than not. I'm not sure if you got any hobbies I don't know about. You might get out there and shake some stuff. But what I really wanted to dive into was being a parent for active kids. Because, you know, my version of the story, as my son has gotten more into football, it's a lot of traveling. It's a lot of back and forth. He had 7th grade with practice at 6:45 a.m. in the morning and games on different parts of town and this, that, or the other. And so I actually gave your husband a call, because you all have 3 active kids and you all do basketball, and the AAU is a lot more busy than football typically. And I asked him, how do y'all do this? So he gave me some good insight, but I turn it over to you as a working mom, a busy mom, a busy person, an influencer in your community. How do you create that balance between what you got to do and need to do for the kids, but supporting their active lifestyle? What is your balance? What is your inspiration?
Yeah, great question, man. Like, there is no life once season starts, and now seasons like all year long, it feels like. So the balance piece I'm still working on. But
that's
what
fair.
I will say that, I've heard this said before when people talk about work-life balance, that it's not a balance, it's a blend, right? Like, you figure out what is needed at that moment and you address that piece, which sounds very reactionary, but you try to plan as much as you can. But at the same time, you also have that expectancy of, okay, if the other shoe drops, we got to figure it out. But like you said, we got 3 kids. Currently, all are in season playing high school basketball. Luckily, they're all at the same high school. So this is actually a relief for us because somebody else drives them. Yeah, but this is for us. This is the highlight of the basketball year, which it does help us because we get to kind of ground. It's some more stability, it's more assistance once they get to high school ball. Because if any parent out there has been involved in AAU, and my understanding, because my kids have only played AAU basketball, but that this kind of transcends all AAU sports. It's very common. I got girlfriends whose kids play volleyball and others who play in football and, all the different sports, baseball, all of them that are out there. That is very similar as to just the chaos, the organized chaos that comes up. But, you know, first off, I think it starts with communication between the parents. All right, we know that this is about to enter the season, and it's communicating with our broader community to be like, y'all know we about to be in season, we about to be ghosts. So like, whatever it is, y'all know that we're gonna like the power of no in understanding
Okay.
that space of just being like, we can't do it all. We can't do it all. And so sometimes we're gonna have to be like, we just can't be here for this. But Carlton, I will tell you, like, there were times where our kids were in 3 different cities. And so you really do have to depend on your village. You have to depend on your folks to be like, hey, like, I am humbly coming before you because we need help right now. Like, my kids come into your city. Can you just go check them out, make sure that they're okay, they got what they need? And so, you know, there's a lot of that. But I gotta say, you know, it is amazing to watch your kids do what they love to do. And so despite the exhaustion, despite all the things that come along with it, like, you got no money, you got I don't see my husband for like, you know, 4 or 5 months. We hug each other, be like, I'll see you, you know, in several weeks, because we know we're not gonna see each other, because each weekend we're in different place. Like, all the things that come along with it, that satisfaction of seeing them enjoy what they're doing is amazing. But also the flip side of that is like, when they have their bad games, when they have those frustrations, when they have those devastations, which, you know, their 15, 17-year-old brains perceive as devastating type stuff, it's tough, because you got to be there and you got to build them up and you got to figure out what's going on in the outside influences. You know, if you got a coach that's trash, or if you got, you know, team drama, whatever it may be, that becomes your issue too, because you're dealing with their emotional response to it. But man, yeah, like, there's nothing, and I'm that parent. I say it all the time. I am that parent from the stands, shouting, yelling at the refs, loud and wrong, like all the things. I do it, but
They make
I know who
videos
I
for
am.
parents like you.
They do. I hear the warning every time where they say get kicked out. I step to the line, and, you know, I apologize to the refs before the game. I'm like, look, I'm gonna be that one. Don't take it out on the team. I apologize to them after. I just can't help it. But no, I love it. There's nothing for me better than being able to watch them play and do what they love. And despite, no matter how like draining and tiresome the times may be, because I know I'm like, lilacs and roses, it's great. No, it's draining. There are days where you are like, how the hell do we have another game today? And all those things. And all I'm doing is watching, and I'm exhausted.
Right.
But the constant reminders that this is finite, right? We got friends that have kids who are older, who look back and they're like, man, I miss those days. I miss sitting in the stands. I miss doing whatever. You know, I wish I had that to do now. And, you know, so I do, despite the times where it is exhausting and draining and all that, I do still try to find the joy in it, because I know it's so temporary, it's so short, you know, especially with one who's a junior. It's his senior year is coming up, like, it's almost done. And that's, I'm gonna be honest with you, Carlton, it's devastating to me, because I feel like so much of my like identity and who I am is tied up in raising kids. And I'm like, granted, I'm gonna still be there for them when they're out the house, when they're older, but like, this piece is almost done. And that's really, really hard to accept. Keith's fine with it. My husband's fine with it. He's ready. But I'm like, I know you're gonna be sad.
Like,
I know you're gonna be sad.
Bye, boy.
Right.
See you
Don't
later.
let the door hit you. But yeah, man, that is tough. So you do cherish those moments, because you know it's not gonna be for much longer.
All right. Well,
So,
I took some notes. So, audience, in case you didn't get it all. One, understand. So go back. We talking about parenting the life of active kids. So one is the power of no. Understand it, use it. You can't do it all. Leverage your village. Was it Hillary Clinton wrote the book? But it takes a village, use it, and then love their joy, because it's finite. So I think, as you've talked about, for me, the strange part was sitting in the stands. I grew up playing football. I would be on the field. I would always locate my parents. My mom was somewhere in the stands. I would find her glasses, and my dad was always somewhere hanging on the fence so he could be close so I could hear him yell. And so sitting in the stands, watching my son, and like you said, we had some highs, we had some lows, and a lot of the lows came early in the season. So each game it was build up, each game it was finding, encouragement. Cause like you said, I was sharing in the journey. But with all the off-season work, all of the training, all of the practices, getting up at 6:45 in the morning, or getting up at 5 something in the morning, they be at practice at 6:45. He scored his first touchdown. And the joy that I felt in the stands, getting high fives from the other parents, him celebrate on the field, and us being able to share in that moment afterwards. I think everything that you said, you can't do it all. Using your resources, because for me, as I've been traveling for work, I've missed maybe 2 games, and I was sick. I would be in I wish somebody could FaceTime. I wish they had it on TV. I'm in my hotel room, just sad, sucking my thumb, feeling like the worst parent ever. But, he got there, he had people there to support him. But then I just never, it's one of them things as a parent, you don't know what you're going to feel until you feel it. But, watching him enjoy what he's doing is a tremendous blessing. So I definitely feel fortunate, despite the work that it is and all the driving that, we have to do when sitting in the stands. So for sure. All right. So you feel like talking about your Gators, or should we just?
Carlton, like I try so hard. And living in Georgia, I don't know how it is out where you are, but living in Georgia, man, it's like compounded. Like, yeah, we suck. Like, right? Like, we know it. You ain't have to remind us. We know. Like, and they're relentless. And unfortunately, Georgia's doing really, really well right now.
Unfortunately, very unfortunately.
I get little nasty notes on my door. Like,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
When I was in Atlanta, it was the SEC championship, and the host hotel for our venue. The hotel for our event was the host hotel for the team, Georgia team. So we had Bulldogs on every level and every elevator. And I had never felt so sick to not be sick. It was, and on the SEC, Georgia isn't my worst school. It's Tennessee, then LSU, then Georgia. So I could only imagine if I was, I could only imagine if it was like the Tennessee hotel. I probably would have checked out and just came to stay with y'all. But I couldn't imagine living in the state of Georgia, living in Atlanta with all them shenanigans going around. But
let me tell you what's so crazy. There are times where I had to go to Athens for like trainings and conferences and things like that. And I got a nice little Gator plate on my car. I will back my car in because I don't have time for y'all fools. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well,
it's crazy.
This year wasn't great.
No,
at least not for the
it was
football
not.
team. The basketball team seems to be having some ebbs and flows. We may have to just focus more on the baseball team and volleyball or something.
Gymnastics.
The Gators still, the Gators still shake stuff out there, but that football team just will leave you in your feelings.
It does. Right. Very disappointing, disheartened, but builds resilience, right?
Does it? It maybe. That's maybe
unfulfilled hope yet again.
Yeah, life lessons, right? More trauma to carry forward to teaching and raising the kids. All right, on that, we'll take a break and we'll be right back. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
And it will be so sweet, America. It will be so sweet. And all that heartache will go
to our president.
You gotta see the monster to be able to destroy the monster.
He took the military out before he took the civilians. Who does that?
Under his why. Welcome back to Conversations with Carlton. I am with Elizabeth Dalia Racine. Are you entertained? So, Dalia, what have you been watching?
Well, it's more like what's been watching me. Because I feel like when I come home, I don't have any energy. But can I just tell you, I had a little guilty pleasure. I got caught up in watching the Wednesday series on Netflix. I was like, ooh.
I just started it.
What's going to happen next? So, like, that's what I need. I need, like, mindless stuff. So, Keith and I, we ended up watching Love at First Sight. I'm going to, first off, understand I'm not going to say anything intelligent in this answering this question. It's all gonna be mindless pleasure.
That's fair. No judgment.
So
Judge
yeah,
it
and then
off
we
the
watch
screen.
watching a lot. I am having football watch me more than me watching football because that stays on at this, in basketball, all the things. Yeah, but we actually just watched a really interesting special, PBS special on kind of like the Trump era and all the way that things shook out from him coming into the party and the impact that had on the Republican Party and, just kind of some of the decisions and costs of keeping him in the party to keep the Republican Party from fracturing. And so that was pretty interesting. That was one thing that we saw.
Any insight into what the future might look like from this special?
Yeah, super interesting. The short answer is no, because I think the point is that it's this period of restructuring, right? Like it's redefining who the Republican Party is. I also think it's very interesting since we just had these midterm elections and a lot of the Trump approved candidates did not win. And so I think that it would have been interesting to kind of have an addendum to that special to be like, all right, well, now that it seems like some of his power and influence is dissipating, is there still that allegiance to this portion? And I think the answer is going to have to be yes, because it's such a strong portion of the party that's out there. But I think that there is this struggle to define what does the Republican Party stand for now at this point. So it'll be interesting because I don't know who holds the puppet strings at this point.
Yeah, because one way or the other, Trump's not going to be in a position of power forever. His age alone dictates that. Not wishing nothing on him, just saying that we all have a timeline, and so I often find myself wondering, where is the party going to go? Because there was the Reagan Bush Republican Party, and then there were the Republicans Party that was anti-Obama, and then when it came time for the Democrats to put in somebody new, the Republicans put up somebody new. We got Hillary, we got Trump, and here we are. So I wonder if there's a party that we're going to go back to. Or, is the future going to be a continued ebb and flow of what was kind of like the Tea Party to now be Trump's party to then be something else?
Yeah, no, I think it is all interesting. I think also the other point that's, and I think this goes for both parties, is, the party leadership across the board is, like you said earlier, is aging, right? And this transfer of power to younger generations has not gone, it seems, very seamlessly. It's just it seems scattered, it seems haphazard, it seems just there's a lack of planning or of, generational planning of like, this is what we want the party to look like. And, when one group is in power to say, let's hear from the younger folks about what they want the direct trajectory and direction to be like, we don't have that solid transference of power, if you will, across either party, I feel. And so I think, when we talk about redefining parties, I think it's not just the Republican Party. I think the Democratic Party is going to have to go through it too. Yeah. We obviously have a president who will be in his 80s, if he chooses to run again. I don't know what's going to happen there. And, I think it's anybody's guess as to if he doesn't run, who will be the headliner of the ticket. It's just a lot of uncertainty. Yeah, same. And it's also like, where's the engagement? Are we out there? Are we getting the younger generation engaged? Like, it was crazy. So my oldest was like, man, by the time the next presidential election comes around, I'm gonna be old enough to vote and I'm gonna be in college. I won't be here. I was like, what I'm gonna need you to do is to fly back because I need you to come home and vote for your mother. But, it's that whole piece of like the fact that he's talking about it is good, but how many of his peers are? Like, how important are we making voting and prioritizing issues? Like, what's our platform? What is it that we're going to stand for? And I don't know that anybody has a succinct answer to that right now. And I don't know that we should. Like, everybody's issues are different. Everybody's needs are different.
They continue to evolve. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So that's what you're watching. What have you been listening to?
Nothing really new. Just, having a hard time trying to find stuff. I am hearing what my children are listening to, and I am consistently asking them to turn it down. Can we change that? But, you know, it's probably the cliche answer. But, you know, I will typically go back to when I'm getting ready for the day. I know that I'm having a day or I got a week ahead, you know, I'm gonna roll into some Lizzo. I'm gonna roll into, I have to be honest. I am a solid Beyonce fan, like through and through. Like, do not talk about my Beyonce.
I don't know that I knew that. I didn't know that you were
Yeah,
part of the Beehive. I don't mess with the Beehive.
yeah,
I keep it to
man.
myself, but I didn't
My
know
chick
that you
has,
were part of the Beehive.
she has got me through some stuff in life. And so I am a loyal fan, But what I will also say is that the first time, true confession, first time I heard the latest album, Renaissance, I was like, oh, what have we done here? But I kept listening to it. And I have read articles that said there is something within the beat and the melody of that album that makes it addictive. And now I am fully bought in and I can just run it. And I'm like, yeah, like every song is like a banger now. It took time, but I'm here. I have arrived and I am now still saying she's continuing to produce the hits.
You know, I'm not Beehive, but I respect this space. I'm waiting for Cardi B to drop her album. I love me some Cardi B.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I listened to a little, you know, I gave Meg's album a chance because, you know, we all got to have our ratchet turn up every now and again. So, you know,
they play her a lot at my gym. So to have, you know, I've listened to the album once or twice, you know, she gets some play and she was in a rotation briefly, but they play a lot at the gym. So I get my feel of.
I see that.
Yeah.
Since she's Texas artist and all that.
Yeah, keep it going. Keep the energy up.
For sure. But I love a strong woman album. That's, you know,
all right.
I gotta stay encouraged.
Okay. I respect that. All right. So what you been reading?
Yeah. Other than case law, which is not fun.
Anything you'd like to share?
Y'all would be like, absolutely. No, I think so. This is what's crazy. I mean, welcome to the 20th century. I finally got my e-library book. So I've started to get ebooks. But man, Carlton, I started stressing myself out because they give you 2 weeks. And I'm like, I cannot finish a book in 2 weeks. Like, this is not that. So I started getting anxiety about renting my ebooks from the library. But I did get 2/3 of the way through one called Black Cake, which was really good. And then I put it back in my queue. Black Cake. Okay. It was kind of this multi-generational storytelling about, you know, this couple from the Caribbean and then their kids. And then, you know, the mother has passed away. So now they're kind of going through the reading of the will. And through that, they're finding out more of her history and things along those lines. So that one was pretty good. I don't know how it ended because my time ran out. So I'm a little sad. It came back up in my queue. I wasn't able to get to it. So there was that. But I will say there was another book that I was able to read. That was a quick read. I can't remember the title, but there's not very many that are similar to this. But like how to give 0 Fs about, you know, whatever's going on. And so I thought it was a good one going into my leadership role because it's not necessarily about having apathy about everything. It's about living in boldness and not operating in a spirit of scarcity and go big and, you know, all those different types of things. So I think that helps, especially when you are trying to generate systemic change and you're, you know, told to sit down and step back and dissent your role and, you know, all the things you may hear, or just, you know, consistently facing the nose and keep moving forward. Like, don't let that stop you. And so, yeah, I thought that was a pretty good one. Okay.
All right. Well, we got a couple options. We got a novel. We got some nonfiction. None of which, well, you finished the 0 give 0 Fs. At least you didn't give the spoiler, right? You still, you know, they got a chance to check it out. You didn't spoil it for anybody. So thank you for sharing that. Well, all right, Dalia, this has been a good show. I thank you for coming on and gracing us with your brilliance and your presence. To the audience, this has been another episode of Conversations with Carlton. You can check us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Anchor, all the places. And so again, thank you to my guest, Elizabeth Dalia Racine, and we'll catch you next time with either Unsolicited Genius Live every Monday, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. What is that? 5:30 Pacific. And continue to tune in. We got more episodes of Conversations with Carlton coming, and Thoughts of Genius is in all the same places and spaces. So between now and then, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for having me. Go follow my boy.
Listening to
Unsolicited genius. Unsolicited